Welcome everybody to today's very special episode of the I Went Outside Today podcast. I am one of your three hosts, Chris.
I'm Cheryl.
I'm Sydney. I did the thing.
And Sydney did do the thing. Or did she?
I did.
Or is it misinformation?
Oh, whatever. That was dumb.
For today's episode, we had Sydney take part in a lecture on misinformation hosted by our local Edmonton Public Library. They bring in smart people to talk about topics. And for this topic, they had Timothy Caulfield hosting Infodemic, The Battle Continues. The description of the event: the spread of conspiracy theories and harmful misinformation is a defining characteristic of the COVID-19 pandemic. It has led to deaths, decreased vaccine acceptance, financial loss, increased stigma, health policy challenges, and added to the chaotic information environment. We must counter this infodemic, in quotation marks, especially on social media, with evidence-based communication strategies. And I believe that was all on
Zoom.
Oh yeah, it was another presentation.
It was on the Zoom.
You got to hang out at home, your favorite place in the whole wide world.
It is my favorite place. It's where my things are.
Did you have your camera on for this event?
No, it wasn't an option. It was like he talks at you, not to you.
Okay, Timothy doesn't want to see your face.
No, it wasn't. Like, they automatically turn off everyone's camera and microphone, so you can't yell things during the lecture. I still put tape over my camera anyway.
Well done.
Yeah.
You're going to have to pay for OnlyFans if you want to see her on camera.
Well, I was looking into doing feet pictures again, but I don't want to talk to people.
Again?
I mean, for the first time. For the first time. Never looked into it before. So misinformation.
I was talking to Cheryl about what you might get presented to you, and if everything he told you in that lecture was a lie, it'd still be a lecture on misinformation.
That would be funny. That wasn't it, though. It was just like common sense stuff, and then he dunked on Gwenyth Paltrow like a lot.
That's fair.
Yeah.
It was like 30% fuck Gwenyth Paltrow. 70% the other problems of misinformation.
Oh, so you made Gwenyth Paltrow his target.
Mm-hmm.
I would have thought, because it's like very popular in the news currently, as time of airing this podcast, that Joe Rogan is the hugest source of misinformation on COVID.
He did talk a little bit about Joe Rogan, but he really doesn't like Gwenyth Paltrow. And my favorite slide in the whole series is just a picture of Gwenyth Paltrow, and then it has a big arrow pointing to her, and it just says no. It's my favorite.
That's
I think
awesome.
It's the best.
I think that might be too vague for people to understand.
It's just a giant no.
That's awesome.
Well,
There, I took a picture so you can put it on the website.
Mm-hmm.
you got to send it to us. You take these pictures and then you never send them to us.
Do you ask for them?
I asked you like 9 times for the spooky doll photo, and it took you a week and a half to send it to us.
I have ADHD. It's not my fault. I'll send it to you right now.
I think you just have responsibility deficit disorder.
That's rude. Somebody wants to fight today.
Yeah. Pull out your dukes.
Isn't that what siblings are for?
I send it to you, and I'm sending you this picture of white raccoons as well.
Okay. We will treasure those.
So you and I are ready to fight just as much as Timothy is ready to fight Gwenyth Paltrow.
Yes, we are. I want to look up the condition of albinoism, but there's another one that starts with L, and it's not albino, and I can't remember the word. And I want to look it up, but you're looking at me like to get off my phone.
So I take it part of the presentation was about albinism.
No, but I just can't remember the word. It's just because albinos is like very specifically, you have to have the no pigment at all, and you have red eyes.
Mm-hmm.
That's albinoism.
Yes.
There's other animals that just have loss of pigment, but it's called something else.
Starts with an L?
Yeah.
Loss of pigment.
No. White animal starts with L. Fuck, this is just a list of animals. Let's start with the letter L.
Llamas are white.
White animal condition starts with L. Lucyism. It's called Lucyism.
Oh, okay.
Named after Lucifer.
So misinformation. The majority of unvaccinated Americans believe microchips are in vaccines. That's what I learned.
Well, it makes sense. There is a microchip shortage as soon as the vaccine started rolling out.
That's true.
No, it's from cars though. is the chip shortage. That's where the chips are going.
I thought you were going to say the vaccine.
I almost said the vaccine.
They're all in the vaccine. That's why it hurts so much.
It burns like really bad. Oh my god, my third one burned so bad. And the flu shot burned really bad.
So did they go into the origins of like this misinformation on the microchips being inside the COVID vaccine?
I don't think they did actually find like the origin of the rumor, more just that like most misinformation, like 80% of misinformation starts on social media.
Hmm.
But like I think they didn't say like how that became.
I mean, it does make sense in the COVID age where a lot of people weren't allowed to talk to each other.
Mm-hmm.
If you were going to learn a rumor, it was going to be on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, I think though it's because the 5G maps, they look the same as the COVID spreading maps because they're based on population.
Yes.
Mhm.
So like people were like they're rolling out 5G and the maps look like the COVID maps. This is so suspicious. I think that's how a lot of that started.
Did he give any tips on how to like talk to people who have this misinformation into convincing them not to believe it?
Yeah, but I didn't agree with him.
Oh.
Because I do like a lot of Facebook fights and stuff, and people are just fucking dumb. And if they want to be misinformed, they're going to be misinformed. And you can't talk people out of believing stupid shit. His whole thing is that engagement is key, and presenting the real information is key, and empathizing with people's fears is like key. But like, no, if you're dumb, you're dumb. I don't have to engage with you if I don't want to. That's how I feel about it.
But aren't you engaging by taking part in the internet fights on Facebook?
No, I'm not allowed to do Facebook fights no more.
Uh,
And I went to Facebook jail twice, and I really can't do fights. Because if I get reported again, I'll get in trouble.
Keep an eye out for a sudden brand new Lindsay Grube account popping up in the place of Sydney.
I'm not allowed to do no more fights.
So you don't think the misinformed people deserve any sympathy at all?
I just don't think I have to be the person to give them the sympathy.
So you're saying they don't deserve your sympathy?
They don't deserve my sympathy.
okay.
Well, I don't know. Is that you think that we should have sympathy for misinformed people? Like, where we live, like, everyone has the same internet that I have. So, fix your algorithm. Stop Googling crazy shit and going down crazy rabbit holes.
That's true. Or at least always research into, like, counter the new information you're learning.
Now, then this goes the flip side of things, because, like, I'm the type of person who likes to know both sides of an argument, so I am more likely to sympathize with somebody who has misinformation. When I, as a person who typically Googles the correct information from the correct sources, then go try Google something, it's giving me only the stuff I want to see. So if I want to see the other side of this coin, I need to Google pretty hard to see the other argument.
Or you could just use DuckDuckGo or VPN or incognito.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I see what you're saying, that, yeah, like, all of your algorithms are showing you stuff that you're more likely to see and click on. That's like, my friend doesn't even listen to podcasts, but she gets all these clips of these, like, weird incels. Like, the only podcast she listened to is just, like, a bunch of incels that, like, hate women and say the most awful shit about women. And they make her so mad, and then she shares them to me. And then she gets more of them, and they make her so mad she shares them to me, so we can talk about how disgusting it is. It's like, stop fucking clicking on them.
Yes.
And stop sharing them. That's why all you think podcasts are fucking incels hating on women.
Yeah.
Like, you can't click on anything anymore. Nothing is safe. Like, when your IT administrator told you in 1993 not to click on suspicious links in your email, everything is a suspicious link now. Don't click on anything.
Everything is suspicious in general, like, yeah.
But it really is social media. That was the main thing I took away. It's like 80% of all misinformation. And then the next, like, 20% is, like, your friends and family. So That's the other thing.
So did they go into like each social media? Like I know
No.
they say Facebook is like the sort of like the biggest faucet for this
It just says
onslaught of
social media is all like one, and that was 80%, and then family and friends, and then online, entertainment media, celebrities, cable news, local news, network news, because you can actually have like a ton of information or stories that just like get away from you in the mainstream news.
It's true.
Mom bought clothes at Crazy Ben's. And then she's covering my picture. Okay. Local news, network news, radio, mobile messaging apps, and print news. And print news is, it looks like 17% misinformation. So from 80% on social media to 17% of print news is wrong.
I can understand that because they have like a whole day to put together a newspaper. But online, a lot of these stories are just
They
getting,
happen
like,
so fast.
printed right at once. Sometimes
And
also written by an algorithm, not even a real human.
Yep.
So did they talk about the difference between misinformation and disinformation?
No.
Whereas like misinformation is just basically people talking out of their ass, rumors with no real information to back it up. Whereas misinformation is deliberate.
No.
No? Okay.
Where'd you hear that? Sorry. So misinformation is just garbage that you just make up, and and what's a disinformation?
Misinformation is something that everyone says is true, and they kind of keep putting it forward. Like how when they say, like medical misinformation would be that we only use 10% of our brains, which we use our whole brain all the time, or that blood turns blue and it has no oxygen in it. It's just things that get passed on, everyone thinks it's true because everyone's saying it. Misinformation would be like what those QAnon people believe, where celebrities and politicians are drinking baby blood to become young
like
again.
Pizzagate.
Yep.
Like Pizzagate, yeah.
Is misinformation. Conspiracy theories are misinformation.
Yeah.
Disinformation is just like...
Well, it depends on the
stuff that you
conspiracy
hear.
theory. Sometimes it turns out to be true.
Well, like what?
MK Ultra.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know what that is.
Oh.
Mind control experiments from the States.
Mm.
Yeah.
Did they work?
They created the Unabomber, I think.
Yeah.
He was part of their study.
He was part of that.
They gave a whole lot of people acid without telling them what it was.
Yeah.
Oh, I have heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard about that before.
And so that was like only a theory based on what people were saying, the program that they were in. But then it turned out to be true.
Yep.
But the chip shortage isn't from microchips in the vaccine.
I mean, we'll find that out later. We just need to get one of those RFID readers and like rub it over the area where we all got our vaccinations.
To what end, though? I think that people don't... Like, when I talk to that fucking creationist museum guy, it's like all of his... Okay, let's put microchips in everything, but like, to what end? Like, if you put microchips in computers and sell them to people, you're going to make trillions of dollars. If you put them in people, you're just going to, like, what? Be watching a bunch of microchips, like, on a screen, running around like hamsters? Like, what's the... How do you make trillions of dollars off that?
I mean, I guess, like, real useful applications would be like population motion tracking, like seeing where everybody goes. Like if you wanted to
do that with your phone.
Some people like let their battery run out or don't carry their phone with them.
Those people are ridiculous or criminals.
But if you have like a microchip under your skin and they just have like scanners everywhere and you walk by and it passes, and let's say you have like a deadly pandemic disease, they'll know exactly where you went and all the other people you're in contact with. So that could be useful.
I don't think that anyone lets their phone die in this day and age of wireless charging and portable chargers.
Sometimes people leave them at home.
If they're doing crimes.
I don't do crimes, and my phone occasionally dies or I forget it.
It's true.
During your crimes that you do, because that's the only reason to let your phone die. But if you are going to do crimes, for real, don't take your phone. You'll get caught.
Take a friend's phone.
Well, that's mean. And your friend will get caught for doing your crimes. Next.
So yeah, that is the difference between misinformation and disinformation. I think disinformation is...
It's more like trolls on the internet. Like, it's stuff that people are just making up to...
I thought the QAnon guy was, like, didn't think that it would get taken seriously.
Yeah.
It wasn't like malicious, but it was like spun out of control or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like Cheryl and I are watching the documentary that HBO made about QAnon on TV.
Oh, I didn't see that. What's that called?
I think it's Q Into the Rabbit Hole.
Yeah, something like
I
that.
want to watch that.
It's good. It is. You need to take a break between episodes because the people there are very odd. But they do kind of go into the whole creation and how, like, they think it started out like they call it a LARP, where people are basically pretending to be high up government officials on the internet and everyone just sort of plays along.
Mm-hmm.
I think it kind of followed the same thing as the how Flat Earth kind of spun out from people online trying to sound smart about the world possibly being flat.
Yeah.
But they're just, that was a LARP. People were just making it up and other people were reading it and thought it was all true.
Is this like when people just pile on, like when you see those memes that are like type your password in and Facebook will automatically censor it out because it's your password, and then you go in the comments and it's just all a bunch of stars, but like it's not actually being censored, like people are fucking with you. They're just all typing stars to be assholes, and then every once in a while you just see like QWERTY, like some of their real password.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't let people do that anymore. Or maybe we should just censor everybody all the time.
I don't think. Yeah, you go move in with Russia.
Yeah, they got no Facebook, no Twitter now.
What else did you learn in your course on misinformation, Sydney?
That's just more social media stuff. Yeah, so 3/4 of like respondents to this survey said that their patients got their COVID-19 misinformation from social media. So that was just more of the same, but how like basically social media is the perpetrator. That's like the number one thing that I learned.
So when you're saying patients, were these surveys handed out at like the hospital, like people who are sick with COVID?
Yeah, that was like healthcare providers and like
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
those kind of people. So they like ask them like where do the patients that are coming in like get the misinformation from.
I think that's why when I got my COVID shot, the nurse who administered it very condescendingly explained to me how vaccines work, and they're not giving me the virus. I'm like, yeah, I know. And they're like, and it's not going to make you sick. It's not giving you COVID. I'm like, yeah, I know.
That's very rude. When I got my first COVID shot, the pharmacist goes, I mean, I don't really need to ask this, but I'm just curious for myself. Why do you have the rabies series? Because like it's not a very common series. They can see all your injections. And it's like because I went to volunteer with bats and I needed to have rabies series for that. And then he basically said that it was a shame that I didn't get exposed to rabies because it would have been useful for science, because the new vaccines that they created for COVID were like mRNA vaccines or something. And it would have been handy if I, who had an mRNA vaccine, also got rabies so that they could study it.
I think that's how a zombie plague starts. Tell you
So
the truth.
I was like, cool, I'll try and get rabies next time. Sorry for not getting rabies. So I think sometimes scientists forget about the people in the whole equation.
Oh, yeah. They love the science.
Yeah, he just told me to go fucking get rabies. Rabies is dangerous. You can still, you still have to get more shots after.
Plus, it's hard to get a bat to bite you on purpose.
Yeah, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
Pretty easy.
Oh, you already got the rabies, didn't you?
No, I was wearing gloves, and it wasn't a rabid bat. Bats have to be infected. It has to travel through their entire body up to their brain, at which point the rabies virus can go into the saliva gland, and that's when you're at risk for contracting rabies.
That's a long trip.
Yeah, so you actually have a very low
chance of getting it.
But it's if you get it and you don't have any treatment, you'll die.
Yeah.
So that's why you get the rabies vaccine.
Don't just get rabies and wait it out.
Yeah, and you have to get the rabies series, and then if you have exposure, it's called pre-exposure. So if you get a pre-exposure series, which is 3 shots, and then if you get bit by a rabid animal, then you go get post-exposure. So it's that's another thing about people complaining that it doesn't, the COVID stuff doesn't work and you can still get COVID, and, it's not supposed to stop everybody from getting it. It's about mitigating your risk. which I think people just don't understand, which is also why I don't want to engage with people or talk to them. Like, I don't know. I make these decisions a lot more than the average person. I have a lot of series, and like, it's about mitigating your risk, not about never, ever, ever getting anything.
Mm-hmm.
I think rabies is such a good example because I remember being like, what the fuck? Like, I got to get this whole series. It costs $700 in Canada, and then I got to go get more if I get exposed.
Well, the microchips weren't as good back then. They had to give you extra
Well, you
ones.
want to talk about a conspiracy? I was like, that's a fucking conspiracy. But then it's like, no, it stops you from fucking dying.
Yep.
Like, you're mitigating the... Anyway, it's my whole side tangent about rabies. And how a pharmacist told me he wished that I got rabies for science. So then I got shot up by a different guy the next time, and he did not wish that I got rabies. And I was like, this is better. And then he posted the guy, Timothy Caulfield. I'm looking through my slides because I didn't remember everything.
Mm-hmm.
He talked about they're like trying to basically get the right to look at the Facebook algorithm because it's such a big problem. The whole rabbit hole effect. Did we talk about that on the air? Or was that off there?
We haven't talked about rabbits yet.
About how, like, so you... yeah, we did, because Cheryl was saying, like, you Google one thing, it shows you more and more if you want to see. So they're trying to get rights to, like, look at that.
I mean, it's worthwhile. And I think it's only, like, one side of the problem. I feel like they're only attacking it from one side, which frustrates me a little bit. Because it's Facebook's fault isn't really good enough.
It is Facebook's fault.
On, like, the other hand, people should be taught to verify the information that they're consuming. I mean, we're lucky enough to live in a country where information is free. You should search out as much as you can on a topic before you like start spreading misinformation.
I think so too, but you need to have a little bit of tech savviness. Like Cheryl's saying, you could Google stuff on the front page, and it's also more geared towards what you want to see. We found this out in Goldham, where we had been searching so much stuff like that was related to one thing, that when we found the answer to like one of the clues, I went in incognito and I Googled it, and the result came up, but it didn't come up for any of us because of what we were all searching.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, like, people know what the news sources are. There's left-leaning media, right-leaning media. Like, I know if I look for news in Google, it's never ever going to give me Fox News.
Yeah, me too.
But I know enough to search for it specifically. And I think they should teach people where to like find the information that conflicts with yours, because they taught us this in social studies in high school, how to spot propaganda, how to research a topic and find opposing views. The rabbit hole is one thing, but I think they need to teach people not to be rabbits. You just gotta get educated.
But some people are dumb. I think you're asking a lot of people.
So I think what we're missing out of the whole discussion that you guys are having is the psychological aspect of it, in the sense that a lot of people want to hear the misinformation because it gives them some sort of feeling of control in a situation where things feel out of control. I've seen it on both sides, because again, I have friends who are anti-vax and I have friends who are pro-vax, and it kind of turns into this thing where like both sides want to feel like they're in control of the situation, and they're just going about it in different ways. But the misinformation, a lot of the stuff that you saw out there, like for instance, like injecting bleach into your, veins to deal with COVID, it gives people some sense of like, oh, I have control of this situation. It's less scary now.
I can buy bleach.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I have that at home. I can do this right now. Yes, critical thinking and researching that stuff should be taught, but we also need to keep in mind that COVID was a crazy situation. And people were reacting the best way that they could to, like, the situation that was presented to them. And it may not have been what everyone considered the correct way, but for that person themselves, it was the correct thing.
I think also though too, to like sort of add on that, but like we're seeing there's a lot of, I think this was a psychologist on TikTok that I was watching. He laid out a very strong case for basically like people that are egotistical and have narcissistic tendencies, they're more likely to fall for conspiracy theories, and we're also seeing rising levels of narcissism in the general population. And so there's more people that have these tendencies that make them more, what's the word I'm looking for? Like vulnerable to conspiracy theories, because to believe a lot of conspiracy theories, you have to be egotistical and you have to believe that you are special enough to have this information or smarter than the rest of the population, basically, like to know the truth.
Yeah.
So that's also a whole problem.
Yeah.
They need to teach humility.
Yeah, basically bring back Catholic school. That'll make you feel bad about yourself.
I suppose so.
And just ashamed all the time.
Do you think Catholic school that we went through, or old school where nuns would like beat kids who spoke out of line?
I think either or. I feel pretty bad about myself and ashamed all the time. And I went through non-getting beaten Catholic school. But we could have a survey.
We'll do some A/B testing. But yeah, I think you're right, Cheryl. Some people that need to feel like you have control over the situation probably affects your ability to absorb that information.
Yeah.
Did you guys hear all the, so like in Russia, they're stockpiling sugar and flour, and then someone commented to me like, oh, it's smarter than toilet paper. Like, here, we just bought toilet paper first.
I mean, they're also stockpiling McDonald's, so.
Yeah, that's crazy. I don't think that McDonald's would taste good. If you're gonna, I would just ask for a package of buns. Do you know what I mean? I would ask for the raw ingredients and pay for them. That's gonna make you a way better burger in 6 months than if you have a fully assembled Big Mac. Sorry, we should have released that before Russia shut down, because now they will just be sitting there with fully formed Big Macs. Sorry.
I don't think we've got any listeners in Russia.
Not anymore. Nobody's got listeners in Russia anymore.
I don't know. Like, we're on like a whole bunch of different streaming platforms. We might have one of those still in Russia.
And then they had this fun chart I wanted to talk about called Most Prevalent Misinformation Topics in the COVID Infodemic.
Ooh.
Less than 1% of our listeners is in Russia.
Rude.
So we lost a less than 1%.
Goodbye, Russia. So the number one most prevalent misinformation topic with 200,000, I'm not good at saying big numbers, 295,351 instances is miracle cures was like the number one by a lot. I took a picture so you could put it on the website. Then the next one, with about 50,000, is New World Order or Deep State misinformations. This is like related to COVID. So like Deep State involving specifically COVID.
Oh, that it was a hashtag plandemic.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of thing. And then the next one is Wuhan Lab bioweapon, which my friend believes in, which is about 30,000. And then the next one, I love, like, it just says Bill Gates. It doesn't say, it just says Bill Gates.
I'm just imagining Bill Gates appearing in markets across the globe, coughing on people, and then hopping on a jet and doing it in other countries. And that's how the pandemic started.
Yeah. And that was also about 30,000. And then 5G technology is about 23,000, which surprised me. I thought it would be higher. Because I feel like I'm fucking always hearing about 5G. Just shut the fuck up about 5G.
I think because when that came out, it was so ridiculous that it became like the thing to make fun of.
The poster child.
Conspiracy theorists
silly.
for. It might not be something that most people believe in, but if you're believing in conspiracy theories, people are like, oh, you're one of those 5G people.
Yeah. And then shockingly high is anti-Semitic conspiracies. Came in at around 17,400. Really? Pretty high.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah. Lots of people.
They're saying like Jewish people had something to do with
anything that has like basically like an anti-Semitic sort of sentiment to, basically like Jewish people invented it or this or that or the Jews are behind it. That was like pretty high.
Weird.
Like 17,000 just seems like a lot.
Yeah.
And then,
I mean, I could believe someone invented COVID in a lab. I mean, killer bees were made in a lab and they escaped. Yeah,
but I mean, there is lots of
there's scientists all like Like your guy who's giving you the vaccine who thought you should get rabies. There's people out there working on ideas.
Seriously. Okay, but I don't know. If you just think about it, so like the first things that we ever heard about this virus was that it came from Wuhan in China.
Yep.
And so the Wuhan conspiracies are sitting at 30,000.
Like 30,000 separate conspiracies?
Like instances, I guess. So this is most prevalent misinformation topics in the COVID epidemic. And then it says traditional media volume. So I think they could be like overlapping theories. It's kind of like instances.
Oh.
Does that make sense?
Kind of like how that you have like an urban legend that just varies a little bit by region.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm.
But yeah, so I mean, for Wuhan to be at like almost 30,000 and then over half that number is like, or 17,000. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I think it's a lot of people. Too many instances of people thinking it's the Jews. Considering, I think like there's always going to be conspiracy theories, and I'm not saying that people should be racist at China, but
if the people who think it was the Jews were all Jewish people,
maybe it is. Maybe that's a real conspiracy.
I think it was my cousin.
Yeah. Anyway, I got totally sidetracked. So then, the next ones are population control. Dr. Anthony Fauci just says Dr. Anthony Fauci. No further explanation. And then pandemic is only 7,000. And then bat soup is 6,000.
Bat soup.
Being like the meat market.
Yeah.
People eat bats, kind of.
Isn't that like the leading origin theory, that it came from like a wet market?
Yeah, that's what I had heard too, or pangolins.
Like from, just people eating bush meat.
I don't think we can ever like fully trace it. I think it's more just like meat markets are it's not a great environment because there's germs from the animals and the fresh kills and stuff and the people all mixing together.
Yep. That's how a lot of diseases get around. That's how we got chicken pox.
I think it was also hypothesized that maybe pigs would have been a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there was like a couple different, but they're like theories. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
My money's on Bill Gates coughing on people.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so since this is on here as misinformation, I'm assuming it's been proven that it didn't come from bats.
So we can stop blaming the bats, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
We should always stop blaming the bats. Bats are so good and so cute.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Jewish people.
And like people always bitch.
They're so good.
Don't hate on bats. Don't hate on Jewish people.
They're so cute.
Don't hate on Fauci. I did watch the Fauci documentary.
Oh, nice.
He's good and cute too.
He's interesting though. He started with the AIDS epidemic and is finishing on COVID. Those are some wild bookends.
He's like one of the people that you send a helicopter for when you need an extraordinary situation dealt with.
No one ever sends a helicopter for me.
Well, sorry to let you know.
That hurt my feelings, Chris. So yeah, that's that chart. There was a lot of charts in this. Do you like my descriptions of charts?
Well done.
I like your description of charts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sneakily reading the next slides. Oh, yeah, and then they talked about, like, scientific evidence versus anecdotal. That plays a lot into, like, how you get news from your friend and family. So, like, one of my friends won't get vaccinated because her cousin got the vaccine and then had a seizure. So, that's not based on any science. It's based on one, like, random person, unfortunately, having a seizure that may or may not be related to the vaccine. And it could be. Like, I think the best quote I ever heard was actually, it was from a doctor on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he was kind of pushing her about trying to get her to say, like, all the bad side effects and things about the vaccines, and all these instances of people reacting badly and young people getting the heart thing. And then she just says, if you give 100,000 people a peanut, someone's going to die. And that just really, like, stuck with me when you're talking about mitigating risk and, like... it's such a good little quote to have in your pocket. And just write it down and put it away. Pull it out when you need it.
Death peanut.
Death peanut.
And those anecdotes are tricky too.
Yeah, because I didn't want to be like, I don't care that your cousin had a seizure.
Because there's like a lot of things that people tell you that you just accept in face value because it just sounds reasonable.
Yes. Yeah.
And it might be true. It might be not. But I mean, there's those anecdotes. Like sometimes people just tell you things and you just don't have the energy to follow up on everything.
You should follow up on some things. Another thing though that he was saying, this is like why I just think all hope is lost for some people, is that so people that get their news from YouTube, I think they have like a much higher chance of being misinformed. YouTube is like the number one offender for being misinformed if that's where you get your news from. But I get my news from YouTube Monday through Thursday at the Philip DeFranco show. And I like to think I'm pretty well informed. So
Sorry to tell you.
nope, I know I'm up to date on all
YouTube is a
the...
wellspring of misinformation.
Philip DeFranco show is good. And it's about as much news as I can handle. 20 minutes, Monday to Thursday.
Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Philip.
The other thing, though, in the conversation of that topic where, like, so maybe her cousin did have a seizure after getting the vaccination, it doesn't necessarily mean the two things are related.
But even if they are, like, the chances that she's going to get a seizure are so... And, like, everyone should be... Your cousin had a... Okay, if you are saying that, like, you know, he had this negative reaction from getting the vaccine, I don't know, at least he was still doing his part.
If you die, you cannot spread the virus. You're doing your part.
It's not true of Ebola, though. I think you can get Ebola from dead people. Can you?
Just don't put them in your mouth.
I don't know.
Maybe it's not Ebola. Maybe it's something else. Or maybe it's that Ebola kills you really fast. It's not as good a virus.
Black plague. You need to be careful of human remains.
Yeah, you can still get the Black Plague from human remains.
That's why they burn it, right? They burn people. Maybe that's what I was thinking of.
So he said that a lot of misinformation is coming from social media. It's coming from your family.
I'm waiting for the answer.
Coming
to
from the
this.
news. It's coming from newspapers. Who can you turn to for
Nobody.
information?
Everyone will betray you. He said, like, scientists and stuff.
I feel like this is misinformation.
He was like, look for like peer-reviewed studies, like all the stuff that we already know to do. Reliable sources or multiple reliable sources repeating the same information. Has the information been peer-reviewed? Like, how old are the studies? That's basically it.
So to my point, just make people educate themselves.
Yeah.
Don't be a rabbit.
Or I just say more like reliable news sources. Because, like, have you ever gone and tried to read a scientific study?
Sometimes.
They're so fucking boring.
I mean, yeah, they're boring. They're also long.
They're so long.
Yeah.
And, like, I'm not a scientist, so I don't think it's a good idea necessarily for people to be going, like, maybe read the abstract if you want, but I don't think it's a great idea for people that don't have a scientific background to go and read these long, boring studies, find one little thing and then twist it and then, you know what I mean? So I think our media definitely gets it wrong sometimes, but you need mediaries that know how to communicate scientific information to the public because the public aren't scientists.
We need more Bill Nyes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We literally, and like Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the only like new like argument fodder that I got for, I'm probably not even gonna have arguments because I'm tired. I don't want to fight with people or talk to them or leave my house. But he brought up a really interesting point about a false balance, and this is like where he was talking about Joe Rogan and like this idea that open-minded people will give equal weight to any opinion is like that's giving it false balance, and that's when you go, oh, I'll listen to someone talk about ivermectin. Like my friend is trying to send me a bunch of videos on ivermectin right now, and if you give that the same weight as something like taking the Pfizer vaccine, like you're creating a sense of false balance, and that the two are like equal points, and they're not, because one is based on solid peer review science and process and one isn't. So when you are a Bill Nye type or someone that's communicating science to the public and you give like the same time and space to ridiculous shit and to valid scientific things, you're creating a sense of false balance.
So just saying you can trust your government. You can trust other governments.
I don't think he said you can trust other governments or even your own government, but he's just saying give like the appropriate weight to things, not necessarily from your government, but like, I mean, and this is hard because it involves knowing more about the scientific method and scientific processes, but knowing like that this way that we create vaccines going all the way back to what we know about immunity from variolation is very different than drinking horse medicine. Or I don't know, do you drink it, or I don't know how you take ivermectin.
I think you rub it on your belly.
I would never rub a horse's belly. That's
you
gross.
rub ivermectin on your belly.
I don't want to do that either. How does that help?
I don't know. I just made it up.
It's not a topical. I think you're making that up.
Disinforming.
You're disinforming. You little bastard. But yeah, so that was, he went on a whole rant about Joe Rogan, and like you can't like keep giving garbage opinions the same weight by saying that you're gonna bring in a couple more doctors, because you run the risk of, and like he also said that if he was asked, he wouldn't go on the Joe Rogan show, because when you have credible people going on that show, then you're giving weight to it, that it's a legitimate source where smart people go to discuss things.
I don't think that is really a fair opinion, because Joe Rogan has had Alex Jones on his show.
That's a wild episode too. I love that episode.
Yeah, and so you can't really say that his podcast is a place of information and news, because he has these like insane people on there.
Yeah, and like his whole thing is he'll talk to anyone, which is fine, but like Joe Rogan is saying he's going to bring more people on to balance it out. And so Tim Caulfield's point is that don't create the sense of false balance. If you want to be like a person that talks to crazy people that don't believe the Sandy Hook massacre is real, then like be open about what you're doing. Don't pretend that you're just you're getting the facts and you're looking at all the sources, because some sources are garbage.
Yeah.
That's the point. That's the point I want you to take home and put it under your pillow.
And so how do you figure out who is the proper source?
If Snowden gave them information, you can trust them. New York Times, Washington Post, Guardian.
And so how qualified are you to tell me?
I am.
See how deep this goes? Can we believe anything? Is anything real?
No, this is the Matrix. Welcome.
Oh, thank goodness.
Welcome.
I thought we had to worry about things.
We do have to worry about things. I think I'm trying to find, I thought I had a picture to answer your question about who you can trust. Oh, another interesting thing was there was a study that showed the political affiliation drove the use of ivermectin. So you were like twice as likely to use ivermectin if you voted for Trump in the States. Which is why we shouldn't politicize things. What was your question? I forgot. You were asking me like who can we trust? Was that it?
How do you determine who is a proper source?
Okay, well, I don't
'Cause
exactly.
Everyone's going to tell you they know the real deal.
I do know the real deal. I don't exactly have the answer to that, but this is what I was looking for. So these are his tips for effective debunking. Provide the science. Yes, this works. Number 2 is use clear and shareable content. Number 3 was refer to trustworthy and independent sources. That's what I said.
Yeah.
So the New York
Who are
Times.
they?
New York Times,
they?
Washington Post, The Guardian. They're good enough for Snowden. They're good enough for you.
I suppose. But they're American.
They are.
I want a good Canadian.
Is The Guardian American?
I don't know who the Guardian is.
I think they might be British.
I was going to say CBC is usually pretty...
That's true.
Yeah.
CBC is great podcast.
Yes.
Amazing podcast.
They also are very good at giving the news.
And Philip DeFranco is very good at giving you the news. If possible, note scientific consensus and that science evolves. So that's like another important thing. Like when the masks first came out and they said, I don't know if we should make people wear a mask. It's like the science evolved on that because it became more worth it, like to wear masks versus the risk of people not wearing a mask properly, which people always forget about.
Yep.
When the early science was saying don't wear masks, it was because you touch your face 1 billion times a day and you're not going to wear it the way that a surgeon wears it. People like forget that part. And then, they said we shouldn't wear masks, and no, we shouldn't, no, we shouldn't. And what's going on? Shut the fuck up and listen is what you should be doing.
That was Big Mask. They moved in.
Big
They
mask.
changed the narrative.
We have masks already, so we were fine.
I'm a part of Big Mask.
I bet you are.
My company that I work for sells masks.
And then number 5, which I don't want to do, is be nice, authentic, empathetic, and humble. Number 6 was consider a narrative, creativity wins. So that just goes back to like...
So wait.
Like we were saying
what
how
did
you
you say? Consider a narrative?
Yeah, consider a narrative, creativity wins, it says.
What does that mean?
Consider a narrative. I forget. What it means. I think he was talking about like make it just like in a way that is like understandable, like having a Bill Nye type person to like say the science. You need like scientific representatives that can explain it to the plebs. And then highlight
nice.
gaps in logic and rhetorical tricks, right? So that's being like, what's the motive for injecting you full of microchips when we're in a microchip shortage? What, does that accomplish? Where is the...
But they're saying that the microchip shortage is because they use it all up for the vaccines.
It's because of cars. It's literally the car industry just like fucked all of us. Because they made less cars because they thought people weren't going to go anywhere because it was a pandemic. But then people started getting that like support money, and a lot of people upgraded their cars, and they just fucked the supply chain, and we're never going to recover. And it makes my day job really miserable. Next one is like make the facts the hook. So don't just call people stupid and make them feel bad. You have to make the interesting thing needs to be the fact. Like, hey, did you know that hydrochloroquine is for fish and not for you? I think it's a tank cleaner, right?
I think it's in a tank.
Oh, it's
cleaner.
in a tank cleaner. My apologies.
I forget where it came from.
Me too.
I didn't use it. I didn't rub it on my belly.
I didn't put it in a fish tank, so.
And where are your fish now?
Don't worry about where my fish are. I don't have any fish, but did you know that some fish are racist? That's for another episode. And then the last one is remember the general public is the audience, not the hardcore denier. Which is like, don't be super mad because you talk to the creationist guy and don't treat everyone like him. Most people are normal, is what he's saying. Mm-hmm. So that's how you do it. That's how you combat misinformation.
What if an uncredible source tells you they're a credible source?
Would Snowden trust them? I don't know. You have to just find your own measures for things in this world.
But finding your own measures is part of the problem. People are finding people who they think they can trust, and they're being like, yeah, 100%. Gwyneth Paltrow knows about alkaline water.
And gloop. What is it? She makes gloop.
Yeah.
Goop.
So, like, people are finding their own sources, and there needs to be a way to vet them a little bit better.
But that's where it goes back to, like, basically everyone just needs a science degree. That's the real problem.
But you don't have a science degree.
But I watch Philip DeFranco.
More science.
Who also doesn't have a science degree?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm not dumb. Like, this is why I can't engage with it. I don't know what to fucking tell you. And also, I'm just sick of hearing that we're in a chip shortage because of the vaccine. Like, you can make so much money putting microchips in things and selling them to people. You make no money when you put the microchips in people.
But then the people become the product.
Whatever. You're so annoying.
It's like how they gave everyone Facebook for free, and then they steal in all your info.
Yeah. I'm in too deep to Facebook, honestly, so.
Here's a question for both of you. How much of questioning what you hear in the regards to misinformation do you think comes from the fact that we were all raised in the Catholic school system?
I don't know. I think that's sort of a point against us.
It sounds like you're insinuating Catholicism was a vaccine for misinformation.
I mean, kind of. Like, at least from...
But only if you reject your faith. If you're a devoutly Catholic, you're probably not as likely to question, I would think.
Yes, I would imagine. Like, it's one of those things that, like, I don't know. They usually tout the people that fall for misinformation as being less educated, but I don't think that's necessarily the sense.
No, I think you can be. I mean, I say dumb and people are dumb and like whatever, but I think you can be educated and still fall for schemes and stuff.
That's why so many smart people are in cults.
Yep.
But I also think that, like, money is just a big motivator. Like, why do you think the number one thing for misinformation was miracle cures? Like, I just think money is probably the top motivator for a lot of misinformation, followed by hate based on how many people want to blame China and Jews.
But do you think that the bleach companies were the ones that made the conspiracy theory about injecting bleach curing COVID?
Clorox is like,
Wasn't
we're going to
that-
make so much
Yeah.
money.
But I think that was, like, started by, like, Donald Trump making a joke, wasn't
think
it?
so.
It wasn't, like, it wasn't the same as, like, people scrambling for the hydrochloroquine or whatever.
Yeah.
There is an explanation for why he said it. He said it as a joke with no context. So so he just sounded crazy to everyone.
Did anyone seriously say that you should?
If you Google it, you can find the context of what they're talking about. He kind of like
Missed it?
he mismatched. Yeah, he just sort of mushed up what he heard and then spouted it out as saying we just inject bleach. But somebody told him something that was rational, and then he said it as a joke, what he said, and it just sounded crazy because no one knew where he was coming from. He wasn't reading the audience.
And did anyone inject bleach?
Yes.
That's sad.
Yeah. Don't inject bleach.
Where did they get the needles from?
You
I
can-
don't understand how people get all this crazy shit done. Like, I never knew where to get ivermectin from or any of that. Like, wouldn't you need to know a vet?
It's the States. You can get just about anything from
That's
anywhere.
wild.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know where to get a syringe from.
I think you can buy syringes from a pharmacy.
Oh, I don't know.
Because diabetes medication, some of it's injectable. Like, I know they've got the
But it
pen auto injectors, but I think you can still buy syringes from
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Those heroin addicts are getting their syringes from somewhere.
That's true.
Well, oh yeah, we have like clean needle things.
Probably AliExpress.
No, we just have an exchange here.
Yeah.
Yeah, they give you clean needles. So I guess you could just go there and be like, I'm addicted to heroin. And they would give you clean needles, but they won't give you the heroin.
Yeah.
So you just go to like a public park from downtown first thing in the morning, pick up your needles, and then head over and then get them exchanged.
Yeah, because those people should be exchanging their own needles, but sometimes they leave them in parks. And that's why we need more safe injection sites and needle exchanges.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's what I learned about misinformation.
And so it was all pretty much predominantly about COVID by the sounds of things. It wasn't just misinformation in general.
Yeah, no, it was just COVID. So I didn't get to learn about Pizzagate.
Didn't learn about Pizzagate.
No, but I watched a documentary on it.
So in terms of finding a good source for science, and Cheryl, you're our resident scientist, what do you think is a good way to suss out proper information? Or I guess on the flip side, how can you automatically kind of tell somebody is maybe making things up?
I mean, at least for me, because here's the thing. I don't think that my sources are going to be the same sources that everyone else is going to want to use. But I typically lean towards organizations that, so for instance, if I'm going to look up what causes cancer, I'm going to go to cancer.org because their entire company is based on, or their entire website is based on research about cancer. I'm not going to go to random WebMD that says everything causes cancer. I'm going to go to like the people who specifically work with cancer to get my information. If I'm looking for stuff science-wise, when it comes to anything else, like I'm going to track down the people who actually work with it. So even though you can go to like the news and get information from them, like we mentioned before, like they get information from other people. So sometimes it's wrong, sometimes it's not completely there, sometimes it's misconstrued, all that sort. And so by going to the people who directly are working with whatever it is, you're more likely to get the most up-to-date and most valid information.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially with the news, like a lot of the times lately they're just leading with headlines, or they just sort of jump to the most exciting part of the news. I think one of the more famous examples is like every few years scientists have figured out a cure for cancer, and it turns out they maybe stopped cancer in one mouse in a trial run at some point.
Yeah.
And saw promise there.
Yeah. And even one problem that I noticed that was huge during the pandemic is people would read the headline and get outraged and then not read the whole article. So they're reading just the tagline to try rope you in, and then thinking that whatever's being reported in that headline is the news. And then it's like, no, wait, did you read the whole article?
Yeah, lots of it's very clickbaity.
Yeah, and so like, should you really be getting your information from that?
Yeah, Cheryl does bring up a good point. Kind of use your sources. Your sources of information should be people and deal specifically in that information.
Don't go to a
studying it.
goat for cow's milk.
It's true. Don't watch a YouTube video because you're just watching a career YouTuber most of the time.
Unless it's Mark Rober. He's an engineer, so he could talk about engineer things.
No, he can't.
Yeah, he can.
He's a YouTuber. He's not human.
He worked for NASA. Have you worked for NASA?
Does he work for NASA now?
My cousin works for NASA.
Everybody works for NASA.
I technically worked for NASA.
No, you didn't.
Some designs I made are being sold in NASA stores now.
Oh, whatever.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
But yeah, definitely like vet your sources. Don't get it from Alex Jones. Don't get it from Joe Rogan. Don't get it from some guy on CNN with crazy hair and a fake spray tan. Get your science information from scientists.
How do you go talk to the experts, though? Can you just go to your nearest university and kick down their door?
I mean, you can always send an email.
You work at a university. Have you even tried?
All I do is try and dodge professors. Are you kidding me? Every time they see me, they're like, word doesn't work. I fucking army crawl away from those guys as fast as I can.
Well, then contact a different university. Most instructors, if you send an email and you're like, hey, I have a question about this, I hear you're an expert in this field, they'll respond.
What if I ask them questions in such a way as to, like, if I just tried to, like, get their entire course that they taught so I could earn a degree?
You can't earn a degree without getting credits, and you can't get credits without being enrolled in a university.
But I could, like, just learn their whole course if I just ask them questions.
Okay, yes, you could, but then you're not getting a degree.
But you would know that whole course.
Would you? You could say it. You can just not go and say that you absorbed all that knowledge without ever going and paying for school.
I would know.
You could go to Coursera and take a free course, and a lot of those could be converted to credits if you want them to, and if you don't, then they're free.
Yeah, I think we've learned a lot about misinformation in this episode.
Yeah, I told you good things.
Check your sources and make sure that you're getting the right sources. Don't just pick a random source. Make sure they are a smart source.
Don't go to a goat for cow's milk.
Exactly. And in terms of just conspiracy theories, just often think about what is the most boring explanation for what's going on. That's probably what's going on.
Yeah, all the time.
Not globalists.
Yeah.
Miracle cures aren't gonna miracle cure.
And as far as, like, microchips and, like, having a chip shortage because of wanting to inject them to people, there's a really good quote that's basically just like, never assume malice when incompetence will explain the situation, which is what happened. And now some of us have terrible day jobs because of it.
So that wraps up today's episode on misinformation.
You didn't ask me if I would recommend this to a friend.
Sydney, do you recommend this program to a friend?
Yeah.
Would you like to name those specific friends right now?
No, I don't have no friends.
You are disinforming us.
I am disinforming. I will maybe privately suggest to some of my friends that should take it. I don't know if it's on again, though. It's like part of a lecture series.
Yeah. Is there any feedback you'd give to Timothy Caulfield yourself on his presentation?
No. He had good hair, though.
He had good hair, Tim.
You had good hair, Tim.
So even though you don't advocate for sympathy for people who fall for misinformation.
Well, you could, like, maybe some sympathy, but you can only have so much sympathy. And it's okay to just be annoyed with people.
You still wouldn't tell Tim to change a thing in his presentation.
I think it was a good presentation.
Well, on that note, here's where we'll end today's very special episode of the I Went Outside Today podcast. This is one of your hosts, Chris, signing off.
Cheryl signing off.
And I'm Sydney. I did the thing. Goodbye, turd people.
Thanks for listening to today's very special episode of the I Went Outside Today podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, spread the joy and share us with your friends or leave a review.
If you really enjoy our podcast and you want to support us in doing more episodes, consider donating to our Patreon or leave us suggestions in the comment section on our website or social media. Or you can email us at iwentoutsidepod@gmail.com.
And make sure you follow us on our social medias. We got Twitter. We got Facebook. We don't got Snapchat because that's for creeps.
We don't have Twitter.
We don't have Twitter.
Facebook and Instagram.
We got Facebook, Insta.
Oh, fuck. Okay. We're not going to do it again. It's not going to be as good. Why don't we have Twitter? We got Facebook. We got Instagram. And you can see all our photos and adventures that don't get turned into episodes because every day of our life is an adventure. Bye. 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 Bye.